Welcome to the fourth branch program, the place for common sense. Today is Friday, July 26, 2019. I am MD. We have a very interesting program. You will receive or may have already received an invitation in which it says it is necessary to remove Nancy Pelosi as the Speaker of the House. It's a very important discussion to have in light of what is going on in the country. In order to set the stage, we will discuss a number of things. One, it is imperative to impeach Donald Trump. Two, it is necessary, maybe at this point, to begin the process of removal of the House of Speaker. Three, which is the most important, patriotism should trump everything in this country if we want our democracy to survive another 200 years. In 60 seconds, we will discuss all that through the prism of common sense. Thank you once again for staying with us. As I mentioned, we have a very interesting program and we wish to provide to you the necessary information in order to make a decision that is not based on your political affiliation but rather on patriotism. If you've been here before, thank you. Your participation makes the journey a little bit lighter, a tad more bearable. If you join us for the first time, once again, welcome to the fourth branch program. The fourth branch program is not associated with any political party, and we at the fourth branch do not have any political agenda or aspiration. Our ultimate objective is to perfect the union. In order to do so, we ought to remove the biggest obstacle of all, ignorance. JFK said that the ignorance of one voter in a democracy impairs the security of us all. Thus, the importance of eradicating ignorance from our society. Let's try to remove the political hats we've been wearing. Let's try to remove the political clothing we've been wearing, and let's put on the patriotism, the patriot clothing, hat, socks, shoes, in order to figure out how to move forward. whenever the word impeachment in regards to Trump is brought up in a conversation, you can almost rest assured that Republicans in general, Trump fanatics in particular, will throw a fit. In fact, in conversation with my fellow Republicans, some even ask the question, what did he do wrong? But what makes the situation even more complex, more complicated, is because today we have Republican legislators who took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, but instead have been working aggressively, steadily to undermine that Constitution. The primary job of a legislator, meaning individual that you elect to Congress, House, or the Senate, is to exercise oversight on the executive branch, meaning the president. It doesn't matter which political party you belong to. If you are a citizen and a patriot, and emphasis on the second word, patriot, you cannot not want the legislative branch, meaning Congress and the House, to do the job, the primary job for which they were elected. You cannot not want that. Now, I know a lot of people, Democrats in particular, they have been waiting for a number of, just like, is the irony of the whole conversation. That's really what's mind-boggling to me. When Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel, and I mentioned yesterday, and let me remind you again, that when Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel, there was not a single Republican who opposed that, who opposed him, because Robert Mueller is known for his integrity, is known for his impartiality, is known to do the job thoroughly without any partisanship. And that's why Republicans and Democrats alike were pleased of the choice of Robert Mueller as special counsel. Because both major political parties know that if there is nothing to find, Robert Mueller will not find anything. But if there is something to find, Robert Mueller will find that something. Now, despite the spectacle that you've seen that the Republican legislators did a couple of days ago, Wednesday, and I think one individual said best and put it best, that Robert Mueller, your patriotism is trump every one of us here in the chamber. And that's not an exaggeration. Robert Mueller had no reason, from a financial perspective, from an upbringing perspective, to even put himself in a predicament where you would have people who are crooks, who are liars, who do not care an iota about the country, to try to smear him. He had no reason for that. except one. He is a patriot. Now, we're not here to talk about Robert Mueller, but that point ought to be made. Because it's always mind-boggling to me that no matter what it is, Republican legislators would spin it in such a way that they rely on the naiveness and the gullibility of the constituent to go along with it. And that's the greatest danger that the country has faced. Because the individuals in the Republican Party in general, called leaders, people who are supposed to lead in the right way, to lead the way, to show the proper way to do things, to show the right way to do things. But on top of that, most importantly, those people took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States. What that means is, no matter how you feel about something, if it means to do the job for which you hold that office, that's what you ought to do. So Robert Mueller is not the problem. Now let me set the record straight. Robert Mueller was not appointed special counsel because it's a standard that every time we have a new administration, then a special counsel is appointed to investigate. Robert Mueller was appointed special counsel because the current president of the United States did things that are not acceptable in a democracy, that are not acceptable, period. As such, the system that we have say, let's take someone that would not have to respond, that would not have to report to the president, to look into his action and see whether those actions amount to impeachable offense. Now, since May 2017, Donald Trump has been steadily, consistently bashing the special counsel, preventing people from providing collaboration to the special counsel, threatening people, bribing people not to talk. Now, you could be a Republican, but you cannot be stupid enough not to recognize, in order for someone to do something like that, there is something that you want to hide. You cannot not have anything to hide and having to deploy all the resources of a president in order to prevent people from testifying, in order to bribe people not to testify, in order to threaten people not to testify, and in order to, cajole people not to in exchange for favor. However stupid an individual is, you cannot not recognize this is the work of a criminal. The presidency of the United States, before Donald Trump got in office, was considered as a position of integrity, a position, the individual who occupies that position always regarded with the utmost respect, because it's not just the power the office conveys, but the respect. Now, Point number one, we said impeaching Donald Trump is necessary. Not actually, is imperative. Beginning the process of removing the House Speaker is necessary. Is why, if you are a patriot, because Republican legislature that's already established, they can claim all they want they are patriot, but they prove for three years now they have no interest whatsoever in upholding the Constitution. They have no interest whatsoever in exercising oversight on the executive branch. They already proved that. So the idea of trying to, split hair and trying to explain away, that is not necessary. That's already established through their action that the idea that they are patriot is simply an idea. But they prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that loyalty to the country is not something that they have. Sadly, it's not just the Republican legislators in Washington, it's also the Republican constituent. But why impeaching Donald Trump? One individual asked the question, what did Donald Trump do wrong? I'm too shy to call that individual stupid. I'm too polite to see this is a question from an ignorant individual. But I am going to go through the process of explaining, number one, in fact, I'm not going to go through the process. I'm going to let a Republican explain why it is necessary to impeach Donald Trump. If you are a patriot, and notice I say patriot, not citizen. Being a citizen doesn't make one a patriot, because I notice with a lot of my fellow Republicans that I have had exchange conversation, individuals that I have interviewed, and it seems to be widespread in the Republican circle, who seem to think that because they were born here, well, those who were, because they were born here in the country, that automatically makes them a patriot. No, it doesn't. It makes you an American citizen, but it doesn't make you a patriot. I'm going to come back and explain to you. As a matter of fact, instead of spending the time explaining to you what a patriot is, I will try to find exactly, I will try to move the process along. So we'll just make one announcement and explain the word patriotism, and then we'll come back to explain why it is necessary to impeach Donald Trump, why it is rather imperative to impeach Donald Trump. Because contrary to those who are asking, what did he do wrong? We'll come back and lay the groundwork for you so that you can see clearly that in order to save our republic, in order to save our democracy, in order to preserve our Constitution, it has become urgent that we as a nation do what is absolutely imperative to do to get there, because failure to do so would prevent our republic from surviving another 2 centuries. And this is not just cheap talk. We have seen the erosion of our democracy gradually happening right under our eyes. And now it is displayed in full display. It is not just an individual, it is a whole political party, legislators and constituents alike, who are okay with that. So the idea of that cannot happen, the idea of that will not happen, is no longer an argument. The only thing is, can it be reversed? The only thing is it possible to stop it? But it has already started, and today, the past 2+ years, we have seen the executive branch destroying our institution, shredding our constitution, and we have seen the legislative body, the Republican side of the legislative body, in full sync and helping with the process. Now, this is not a matter to simply shrug under or sweep under the rug and think, it's the United States. I heard a few political analysts making that argument, we will survive. Maybe not. If you are a patriot, you cannot not be outraged, because this is not a matter of being Democrat or being Republican, because the very reason that our democracy survives is because of that very structure of our government. The minute that you don't have any oversight, then at that point, the idea of democracy in the United States of America ceases to exist. So if you are a Republican and you think it's okay, then you too are no patriot. There is no other word of saying it. No matter what you hear people saying, trying to sugarcoat, trying to go around to explain it to you, that's all it means. If you are okay with what is currently going on with Donald Trump, with the Republican Party, you categorically are not a patriot. And no matter what you think of yourself, you are not a patriot. Because a patriot is someone who would give or who would make sacrifice sometimes of his or her own life, let alone sacrifice a political party in order to preserve the democracy, in order to preserve the Constitution, in order to preserve the rule of law. So if you cannot do that, don't talk to anyone about being patriot, because you are no patriot. It is imperative to impeach Donald Trump. Contrary to what Republicans, constituents believe in their head, that Donald Trump did not do anything wrong. Sometimes it's impossible for me to understand if it's ignorance or something else, because you may like someone, and usually when you do, you may live with the individual flaws. Don't we all have flaws? You may accept to live with the individual flaws. That's okay, but say so. But don't pretend the individual we're talking about is a saint. Don't pretend the individual has not done anything wrong, because it's not just telling you that Donald Trump has done wrong. It's written all over the place. It's in court document. It's well before Donald Trump even fathomed the idea of entering politics. court documents. There are tons of those court documents. Those are not some individual that just telling you Donald Trump is a crook, a liar, a scoundrel. It's proven. Plenty of documents. So don't pretend that you don't know that. What did Donald Trump do wrong? That's a question that, for some reason, some Republicans who support Donald Trump are asking. But the reason we're saying it's imperative to impeach Donald Trump is because Donald Trump has done plenty wrong. And he has done things that even by wrongdoing standard, it's way beyond impeachment. On Wednesday, Robert Mueller said on national TV publicly that Donald Trump, if he were not seated in the Oval Office, would have been indicted. Oh, what did Donald Trump do wrong? How could Donald Trump be indicted for not having done anything wrong? Can you answer that question? What did Donald Trump do wrong? Actually, the better question, whenever we're talking about Donald Trump, what did he not do wrong? Because the question, what did he do wrong, is actually pretty stupid question. But if you were a patriot, and if you did value the presidency of the United States, it would not have been difficult for you to demand the impeachment of Donald Trump. But we already know you Republicans are not going to, because you pretend to be patriot, but we know you are not. Oh, I forgot. You put your hands on your chest during the national anthem and you said, oh, I am a patriot. No, you're not. A patriot, patriotism is not something, it's not a cover to hide under. It's not a pair of shoes you wear whenever you're going someplace or you feel like. It's not clothing that you put on so that people can say, oh, he's a patriot. No. Patriotism requires making sacrifice in order to preserve what's important to you, which is our Constitution, which is our democracy. And if you cannot do that, then where is your patriotism exactly? What exactly do you consider as being patriot? What makes you think you're a patriot if all of that is being thrown on the side, but you still want people to think you're a patriot? Where is that patriotism? Now, having established, and if you have any shred of decency or integrity, then it should be pretty obvious for you to recognize as well that, yes, you have not been acting as patriots. Maybe you intended to, maybe you meant to, maybe you want to, but so far you have not. But let's see what your Republican senator, now someone today who doesn't seem to understand that the integrity of the Oval Office is necessary, but I don't know if it's out of hypocrisy that he pretended at that time that the office of the presidency needed to be sacred. But let's listen to him giving you a reason why Donald Trump should be impeached. Because I'm too shy to say that, I'm too polite to suggest that, maybe I should let a Republican do the talking. So let's listen to Lindsey Graham saying that.
So the point I'm trying to make is you don't even have to be convicted of a crime to lose your job in this constitutional republic if this body determines that your conduct as a public official is clearly out of bounds in your role.
let us take another look at what Lindsey Graham was saying, because it is important for Republican constituents to understand that patriotism is what strengthens our republic. Not being a Republican or being a Democrat. It's patriotism. The minute you stop being a patriot, you stop being useful to the United States of America. You're just another individual who trying to take advantage of whatever the country has to offer. That's all it boils down to. But a patriot is someone who recognizes when the republic is in danger and is willing to put aside whatever interest he or she has in whatever political party in order to defend the Constitution, in order to defend the republic. If you see yourself spinning this around, trying to explain it away, you don't have to try to convince anyone, because your argument just means squat. It is imperative to impeach Donald Trump because, Lindsey Graham, let's listen to why Lindsey Graham thinks it's necessary. Let's listen to him again.
So the point I'm trying to make is you don't even have to be convicted of a crime to lose your job in this constitutional republic if this body determines that your conduct as a public official is clearly out of bounds in your role. Because impeachment is not about punishment. Impeachment is about cleansing the office.
The individual today who stand and defending all the wrongdoing of Donald Trump. And if you're looking for, if you don't want to agree with the fact that Donald Trump has committed many crimes, Lindsey Graham actually give you a way out of that. It's not about a crime. Impeachment is not about a crime. It's about cleansing the office of the presidency. Which Donald Trump supporter can look and say with a straight face Donald Trump has done nothing wrong? Has been the model of presidency. And I asked the question, and I've been asking it for the past 2+ years. Which of those individuals would or can use Donald Trump as a role model for their children or their grandchildren? Can you use Donald Trump and point to him, to your children or your grandchildren, and say, I would want you to grow up to be just like that guy? Yes, impeachment is imperative. The argument that Lindsey Graham, you just saw, giving on the Senate floor was about Bill Clinton. He was trying to make a point because Bill Clinton had an affair with an intern. Then he should be impeached. Well, actually, I said that wrong. He lied about it. Then he should be impeached. Now, notice, pay close attention. Bill Clinton had an affair with an intern. Now, that's unethical, but that's not impeachable. But when he had to give the position, he lied. Impeachable. Now notice what Bill Clinton, while Lindsey Graham was on the floor making argument to impeach Bill Clinton because he lied about an affair. I heard people trying to compare Bill Clinton to Donald Trump. Now, I don't know what else Bill Clinton has done, but if we take the public record that we have when Republicans were gung-ho about impeaching Bill Clinton, and we put it against why today we say it's imperative to impeach Donald Trump, there is not a single soul on the face of this planet who would object to that. I should say a patriot. Because Donald Trump did not just soil the presidency of the United States. He demeaned it, he debased it. And the very reason for which the special counsel was appointed, he goes back to doing exactly the same thing again. He spent 2+ years during the investigation saying that he had nothing to do with Russia, right? He did not collaborate with a foreign enemy, right? And do you know that as of our talking, Giuliani, Donald Trump's personal lawyer, is now the head of an organization whose primary job is to collect dirt from Ukraine in order to use in the 2020. Now, I already told everybody that Donald Trump's words mean absolutely nothing. I don't know why people think it's waste the time to dissect Donald Trump's word. We already know that everything that comes out of Donald Trump's mouth is a lie. And this is the president of the United States, and everyone who support him asking, what did he do wrong? Robert Mueller say after Donald Trump leave office, he can be indicted. I don't know if you know, you don't indict an innocent person, in case you didn't grasp that concept. Michael Cohen, who did and acted on behalf of Donald Trump, is currently sitting in jail. Donald Trump is named as a co-conspirator in that crime. I don't know which language that ought to be explained to the Republicans in order to understand that we currently have in the Oval Office a criminal. Not my words. It's already established. It's in the court paper. Donald Trump is a criminal. And the only reason he's not indicted is because the Department of Justice, DOJ, has guidelines that sitting president cannot be indicted. Now, if you ask, or if you were to be a patriot, you have to ask yourself, why would they make such a stupid rule? Because we all have to pay a price when we do something wrong. So there is no argument that Donald Trump has already done beyond impeachable offense. The argument, what has he done wrong? I don't know, you tell me. What hasn't he done wrong? Even legislators, and that's the sad part about it, because those are the people you expect as leaders to actually provide the constituent information so that they can be better informed, they can make better decisions. They're the one that actually making the false narrative to protect an individual who by any analysis is a criminal. If you are a patriot and you're watching that happening and you try to fast forward that to the future with this type of behavior being now acceptable by the President of the United States, can you see where this republic is heading to? Can you? When we come back, we will address the issue of why the Democrats ought to begin the process of removing Nancy Pelosi as the Speaker of the House. The stakes are high. Our Constitution is in the balance. Our democracy is in jeopardy. It is time that patriots rise to defend the only republic we have. It is that important. If you are a patriot, you cannot not be outraged, because this is not a matter of being Democrat or being Republican, because the very reason that our democracy survives is because of that very structure of our government. The minute that you don't have any oversight, then at that point, the idea of democracy in the United States of America ceases to exist. So if you are a Republican and you think it's okay, then you too are no patriot. There is no other word of saying it. No matter what you hear people saying, trying to sugarcoat, trying to go around to explain it to you, that's all it means. If you are okay with what is currently going on with Donald Trump, with the Republican Party, you categorically are not a patriot. And no matter what you think of yourself, you are not a patriot. Because a patriot is someone who would give or who would make sacrifice sometimes of his or her own life, let alone sacrifice a political party in order to preserve the democracy, in order to preserve the Constitution, in order to preserve the rule of law. So if you cannot do that, don't talk to anyone about being patriot, because you are no patriot. In 1998, as you just saw, Lindsey Graham making argument to impeach Bill Clinton, the House was controlled by the Republican, obviously. And upon finding out that Bill Clinton lied about his affair with Monica Lewinsky, Republican pounds. And notice the reason for those who are asking today, the Republicans who are asking today, what did Donald Trump do wrong? um, Republicans pounce. Now, if you listen to Lindsey Graham, the argument he was making is as if they cared about the integrity of the Oval Office. But that aside, we already talked about Lindsey Graham. Now we're talking about Nancy Pelosi. Now, Nancy Pelosi was challenged from the onset before the 2018 midterm election even took place. A number of newcomers would not want Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, the number of people of newcomers who publicly expressed their opinion about not wanting Nancy Pelosi were around 23. But Mrs. Pelosi, being a veteran in politics, managed to squash every possible avenue for losing the speakership. At some point, there was even an individual who vied for that post. In the end, Nancy Pelosi became the Speaker of the House. Some of the moves that she made has been hailed as brilliant. Only Nancy Pelosi could do that. Only Nancy Pelosi knows how to deal with Donald Trump. She's that good. Boy, if it weren't Nancy Pelosi, we don't know how that would have been handled. Not to diminish her experience or her smart, Nancy Pelosi today is resisting, as Speaker of the House, she has to sign off on the idea of impeaching Donald Trump. So you have members of different committees, Nadler in particular. You can clearly see when he talks that he already way beyond the idea of beginning the impeachment of Donald Trump. But Nancy Pelosi has been preventing that from happening. Now, a number of political analysts have been hailing Nancy Pelosi for showing restraint. But the funny thing is, mostly people in the Republican side, like Newt Gingrich, for instance, has been going on national TV, like, stoking Nancy pride and say, great job, she's doing the right thing. Don't you ask yourself why? Now, a number of people making analysis of the situation claim that Nancy Pelosi believes that it is not good for politics. There is a presidential election that's upcoming, and impeaching Trump may be detrimental. Now, before we take a look at historical records, let's fall back on patriotism. I personally have been very upset about the idea of Republicans not doing the job for which they were elected, which is to exercise oversight on the executive branch. And when the 2018 midterm election, when the outcome came, everyone who is a patriot know, or at least thought, that at the very least there will be some form of accountability of the executive branch. I heard many comments by my fellow Republicans say it's all politics, Democrats are doing this, Democrats are doing that, it's all politics. Yes, the Republican constituent need to be educated, because we have a serious problem, especially among Republicans. And I don't say that for the sake of saying it or lightly, but I found that when it comes to the understanding of how our government works, most Republicans are completely clueless. And I wonder sometimes as to whether that contributes to their behavior in terms of whom they provide support to. In our research here at the Fourth Branch, we found out that the biggest difference between Democrats and Republicans is the following. Democrat constituents are very, very keen to asking to look at various different aspects of an issue. They don't just accept whatever their leaders tell them. That's why sometimes in the news it is referred that there are some form of disagreement within the Democrat Party. In the Republican circle, however, whatever one individual says, everybody falls in line. For that reason, you would find that when you go to Washington, and if you go into the politician, you find out the biggest difference between Democrats and Republicans is Democrat legislators tell their constituents exactly what they have in mind, what they are going to do. Republican legislators, on the other hand, lie to their constituents. And it worked. Now, the disagreement within the Democrat Party is actually good for our democracy, because you don't want to have a party where everybody just falls in line because one person says so. And that's why sometimes I ask myself the question, do Republican constituents have a mind of their own? Because whatever they hear from Fox, that's what they repeat. Whatever they hear from any of their legislature, that's what they repeat, no matter how false it is. Look at what happened the past couple of years. Whatever Donald Trump says, that's what's been said. The investigation is a hoax. You talk to any Republican who support Donald Trump, that's all they say. And it wasn't one person or a few people, all of them were saying the same thing. So sometimes I wonder whether those individuals in the Republican Party have a mind of their own, a mind that brain that works. I don't mean any insult, but that's what I found out in interviews, in exchanges, in casual conversation, in surveys. It all points out to one thing. One individual come up with something and says it in the Republican Party, all of the Republicans saying the exact same thing, and you hear them on Fox, you hear them on different venue, and it becomes true for the Republican circle, no matter how blatantly false it is. Now, according to the pundit, Nancy Pelosi tried to prevent impeachment because she thinks it's not good for the country. It's not good for the Democrat Party. It is not good because of the 2020 election that's approaching. I already wrote a 3-part article in which I prove beyond a shred of a doubt that Nancy Pelosi is wrong about that argument. But I'm not as much interested about the fact that she's wrong, but rather she doesn't show patriotism either. Because we spend, well, I in particular, spend a great deal of time lambasting the Republican for not exercising oversight on the executive branch and letting the President of the United States do so many damages to our Constitution, to our institution, and to the rule of law. So the 2018 midterm election was a turning point in which you think that finally the opposing political party would see to it that the President of the United States is checked. Today, Nancy Pelosi represents the greatest danger than the Republicans are to our Constitution, to the nation. Because the idea of it is not good because of the 2020 presidential election is not any different in terms of argument of the Republicans saying, what did Donald Trump do wrong? Let's put them side by side. Republicans know that Donald Trump is a crook, a liar, and a criminal, and decide to do nothing. Democrats know that Donald Trump is a crook, a liar, and a criminal, and decide to do nothing. Now, I must be fair. The individual, the chairs of those committees, they want to move the process of impeachment forward. It is Nancy Pelosi that's preventing that from happening because of she calculates it's not good because of the 2020 presidential election. You may have received an invite at the end that says #remove Pelosi. And this is not just for the sake of saying it, this is for the sake of our republic, because it comes a time that the idea of doing things for political reason should take a back seat in order to preserve our democracy, in order to protect our Constitution. The Republicans, granted it was all of them, wouldn't do it, but this time we have one individual in the Democrat, Nancy Pelosi, who is preventing the nation from holding the President of the United States accountable for all his wrongdoing. that falls exclusively on the shoulders of Nancy Pelosi. And she's wrong about her argument. In 1998, 72% of the population of the United States did not want Bill Clinton to be impeached. So the idea that Nancy Pelosi is giving, that the public is not with the impeachment, the public is never with the impeachment. That's not the reason that legislators, elected officials are placed where they are, is to make those type of decisions to safeguard our Constitution, to protect our Constitution, and to make certain that our republic is safeguarded. Is not to say the public doesn't want it, so we're not going to do it. So the Republican Party as a whole already determined they couldn't care less. And it wasn't just one individual in the Republican Party. It was the whole party. The whole Republican Party say, the hell with the Constitution. To hell with the rule of law. But the Democrat side, I cannot really put the blames on all of them, because it is one individual who is the stumbling block, the obstacle preventing the country from doing the job of holding the President of the United States accountable. So the argument that the public is not with impeachment is useless argument. Puerto Rico provided a roadmap to the rest of the country how to get rid of corrupt leaders. They took to the street a few weeks ago, and the governor did not see that as a danger to him. Ignored it, wrote it off, and the movement groundswell to a point where the governor could not possibly resist but resigning. And he did. So the idea that you need 70-80% of the people to say, let's go with impeachment, that's not the way it works, that's not the way it starts. You start doing the right thing because that's what you were elected to do, and the public will see that and will fall in line. That's how it worked. So Nancy Pelosi is an obstacle to democracy in America, is now the gravest danger that the country is facing. And as we speak, as reporting in the Hill, which I read to you yesterday, Donald Trump's team is already putting in place a back channel to again collaborate with a foreign government. Yes, the same individual that was telling you that it didn't have anything to do with collaborating with foreign government already has in place the resources to do exactly that. Which means, as far as the Constitution, as far as the rule of law, Donald Trump doesn't care an iota about that. Now, we already know that the Republican legislators do not either. And now we have one individual in the Democrat Party that prevents our Constitution from breathing. Nancy Pelosi may be smart, may be shrewd, but she is showing lack of patriotism at this point. It is time that the Democrats, maybe there is a need for a groundswell movement, protest, to demand that either Nancy Pelosi start the process of impeachment or resign. Maybe that's the solution, because the idea of not holding Donald Trump accountable for his crime is not an acceptable outcome. And the idea that it's bad because of a presidential election coming is not an excuse. Nancy Pelosi is wrong not to allow the impeachment process from beginning. Now, in case it doesn't seem to make sense to you as to why it's imperative to impeach Trump, Jeffrey Epstein is now sitting in jail because it is found that he was involved in sex trafficking, and he has even slept with young minors in his past life. You know one thing about criminals, and if we only take the case of Jeffrey Epstein, we know one thing: once they get away with it, they will continue to do it. That's why for 2 plus decades, he's been doing the same thing, and it didn't matter until now. Until the criminal is held accountable, the criminal will continue to commit crime. As it stands today, Donald Trump already has in place resources to do exactly the same thing that he did in 2016, which was a crime. And because he got away with it, he said, well, and that's how criminal works. And at this point, Nancy Pelosi is an accomplice to letting this kind of thing continue in our nation. When I return, I will show you, will share with you how we can get rid of Nancy Pelosi, because that ought to happen. It's either Nancy Pelosi allow impeachment procedure to start, or Nancy Pelosi must be removed as House Speaker. many ways an elected official can be removed from office. And Nancy Pelosi, at this point, represent the gravest danger to our nation, to our Constitution, and she is currently the obstacle to applying the rule of law towards the President of the United States. The big difference between Democrats and Republicans is what I mentioned earlier. Republicans fall in line. They all fall in line. Whatever the leader says, my suspicion is every day Republicans have a line to go by. They put that line out and they spread it like one of those messages, and everybody repeats the same thing. That's why you see Donald Trump is so successful, because he lies, and that lie is repeated over and over and over, not only by him, by everyone in the legislative body, Republican that is, and it becomes Bible truth. Democrats, on the other hand, they make use of their brain. They can dissect what's true, what's not true, and they don't go along with everything that their leaders say. And that's what makes the Democrat Party, well, frankly, a better party to belong to. For the record, I don't belong to the Democrat Party, in case that's what's coming to your mind. Because diversity is actually good for any democracy. Now, we're talking about removing Nancy Pelosi, because I showed you that it's imperative to impeach Donald Trump because he has committed crimes. As I pointed out, has he not been President of the United States, he would have been indicted. So he has committed crime. That's what they indict people for, not because you've done something good. And Robert Mueller repeated that a couple of days ago, that yes, Donald Trump can be indicted after he leaves office. And the reason you are indicted, once again, for those Republicans who do not seem to grasp that concept, is because you have committed a crime. So the Republican would not do anything, despite the fact that they know they have for leader a criminal. Now the Democrats cannot do anything because Nancy Pelosi is standing in the way. So how do we remove Nancy Pelosi? Just like you saw in Puerto Rico, that's one way we can do that. We can have a groundswell protest to force Nancy Pelosi to let the chairs begin the impeachment process, or she has the option, or resign. Contrary to the governor of Puerto Rico, Nancy Pelosi at least has a way to fall back. She either does the right thing for the country, or she ought to resign. Because at this point, Nancy Pelosi is not serving the interests of the United States. What she is doing is not in the interest of the United States. For 2+ years, the country suffers watching the Republican, both in Congress and the Senate, not do the job for which they were elected, which is to exercise oversight on the executive branch. Now, we are at exactly the same place, not because of all the Democrats, but because of one individual, Nancy Pelosi. So the time has come for us, the citizen, the patriot of the country, to ask that Nancy Pelosi either does what's right for the country or resign. Now we have a few ways we can do that, as I mentioned. The first is, of course, protest. Force Nancy Pelosi to do the right thing or resign. That's one way of doing it. Now, you may not necessarily recall that Newt Gingrich, as a matter of fact, as Bill Clinton impeachment process was underway, Newt Gingrich had to resign, and the reason is because, hypocrite that he was, he too had an affair, and then when that became public, then he had no choice, because how could you be prosecuting someone for having an affair when you too had an affair? You see how hypocrite Republicans are? Now, had that not come to the surface, then he would have been there drumming the beat against an individual for the same thing he was guilty of. But we're not talking about Newt Gingrich, are we? But more recently, you may recall that Speaker John Boehner had to resign because, the House didn't have any more confidence in him, They didn't vote him out of office, but the writing was on the wall that if he didn't resign, then they would have voted him out of office. Which brings me to the second point, the most important point. There are two ways that a Speaker of the House can lose his or her position. If there is a congressional election and the Speaker loses the election, he or she can no longer be Speaker of the House. But that doesn't apply to Nancy Pelosi because that is far down the road. The second way is the Speaker, the House, can vote. A majority in the House can vote to get rid of the Speaker. Now, just like we're talking about impeaching the president, the Speaker can be impeached as well. And at this point, Nancy Pelosi, the dereliction of duty, is impeachable offense. Because that's a job to exercise oversight on the executive branch. And at this point, you can clearly start seeing the tension that we do not have any more confidence in Nancy Pelosi because she is not doing the job for which she is Speaker of the House. The dereliction of duty. This is no longer smart, Mrs. Pelosi. Politics cannot trump patriotism. It is time that you put your political hat aside and start working to uphold the Constitution of the United States. The Republicans did exactly that. That's why Donald Trump was never held accountable. And now you, Mrs. Pelosi, is holding the country hostage for not doing that job. And of course, the third is for the Speaker to resign. Maybe it's time that we, the public, should start protesting and demand that Nancy Pelosi resign, because Nancy Pelosi is now the problem that the country is facing. to hold Donald Trump accountable. And that's not happening under her leadership. So there are three ways we can hold Nancy Pelosi accountable. Mrs. Pelosi, this is no longer smart. And I keep asking that one question, Mrs. Pelosi, and I would like you to answer that question for me. If you're so eager to play politics with our country, what would you be saying, telling the constituent if Donald Trump is reelected after you let him off the hook? What will you be saying to the constituent? What will you be saying to the country? Have you thought of that? I am inviting you to join the movement #RemovePelosi. Yes, it is a movement because until and unless Nancy Pelosi does right by the country, we should start looking at that important issue that we have a speaker who does not want to hold the president accountable for his wrongdoing. We already established that Donald Trump is a criminal. There is no if and but about that. We also already established through the mouth of Lindsey Graham that the office of the presidency needs to be cleansed. We also already established that the chairs of the Democrat Party want to begin the impeachment of Donald Trump to hold him accountable. And we already proved that Nancy Pelosi is the reason that Donald Trump is not being held accountable. So as such, we launch the movement #RemovePelosi. And we hope you can join us so that we can get to keep our Constitution intact. We can get to preserve our democracy and leave a country for our children, for our grandchildren, they can be proud of. I hope you had enjoyed this presentation and there was something of importance in that presentation to you. If not, well, you already know what to do. Send us your comment, your criticism, your suggestion. Let us know how to do it better. As we always point out, this program is not going anywhere. You might as well help make it better. In the meantime, should you have a particular topic you would like us to talk about, let us know. We will research it, we will debate it right here on the Fourth Range program, the place for common sense. I hope you have a wonderful evening and hopefully you can join me again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for another interesting presentation of this program. Have a wonderful afternoon. That was an update through the prism of common sense. Join us again tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for a full presentation. I am MD, host of the Fourth Range program, the place for common sense. Send us comments, criticism, suggestion, or simply let us know how we're doing. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful afternoon. See you next time. Fourth Branch Podcast is brought to you in collaboration with the People Branch publication, which can be found on the People Branch website, located at peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org. That's peoplebranch.org website, in which you will find a number of very interesting articles. My name is Mike Duchesne, MD for short. I hope you have a great afternoon or a great evening, whichever it happens to be. Hopefully you can join me again next time for another interesting episode of this podcast. That was the Fourth Branch, live from New York. Good day.